My name is Daniel Everwood, and I never thought I'd fall in love with a ghost, let alone a fairy. But life has a way of throwing the impossible at you when you least expect it. It started when I moved into an old Victorian house at the edge of Blackwood Hollow. The townsfolk whispered that it was cursed, but I didn't care. I was a writer in search of inspiration, and the eerie atmosphere of the house was exactly what I needed. The first night, I felt the presence. A cold breath against my skin, a whisper in my ear. And then, she appeared, Alara, the ghost of a woman who had died in that very house a century ago. She was beautiful, with spectral silver hair and eyes that glowed like the moon. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. But as the nights passed, Alara spoke to me, told me her story, made me laugh, and before I knew it, I had fallen for her. Then came Sylphine. She arrived one evening with the wind, stepping out of a golden portal that shimmered like sunlight through leaves. Sylphine was a fairy, a creature of pure enchantment, with iridescent wings and eyes that sparkled with ancient magic. She had been drawn to me, she claimed, because I had unknowingly stepped into the realm of forgotten souls, a place where ghosts and fairies sometimes crossed paths. Both of them loved me. And against all logic, I loved them both. It was a love that defied the boundaries of life and death, of magic and mortality. And for a while, we were happy. Until the baby came. When Sylphine told me she was pregnant, I didn't understand how it was possible. A fairy and a human. And then Alara, who could not bear children, revealed something even more shocking. The child was not just Sylphine's. It was hers too. Somehow, through the magic that bound us all together, Alara's essence had intertwined with Sylphine's. Our baby was not simply mortal or fairy, it was also a child of the afterlife. A being unlike anything the world had ever seen. As Sylphine's belly swelled, strange things began happening. Objects in the house would shift on their own. Shadows would stretch unnaturally. The air itself would shimmer with golden dust. The baby was already powerful, already caught between two realms. And then came the night of the birth. A storm raged outside as Sylphine's labor pains began. The walls of the house groaned as unseen forces gathered, watching, waiting. When the child emerged into the world, a shockwave of energy burst from her tiny body. She had silver-white hair like Alara. Her skin glowed faintly with the golden hues of fairy magic. And when she opened her eyes, they were neither human nor mortal. They flickered between ghostly silver and enchanted gold, a child of two impossible worlds. We named her Leora. And from the moment she was born, we knew she would never belong to just one world. At first, we tried to raise Leora together. She was unlike any child I had ever seen. She could vanish into thin air like Alara, moving through walls, appearing and disappearing at will. But she could also call upon nature like Sylphine, making flowers bloom with a touch, summoning fireflies that danced in the air. But the more she grew, the more tension arose between Alara and Sylphine. She belongs to the afterlife, Alara whispered one night as she cradled Leora. She walks between the veil of the living and the dead. She needs to understand the world I come from. No, Sylphine snapped, wings fluttering in agitation. She is a child of magic, of the enchanted realms. She must learn to control her fairy blood before it consumes her. I tried to keep the peace, but the cracks in our love had begun to show. One evening, I found Alara teaching Leora how to step into the world of spirits, how to walk through the realm of the dead. Shadows clung to my daughter like whispers, her silver eyes glowing. The next morning, Sylphine took Leora deep into the woods, where the fairy realm bled into our world. I watched in horror as my daughter's wings, translucent and shimmering, began to form. She was changing, being pulled in two different directions. And then, the final blow came. Leora was 5 when she first spoke the words that shattered our fragile truce. "Where do I belong?" she asked me, her voice filled with sorrow. I had no answer, but Alara and Sylphine did. And that was when the real battle began. Sylphine and Alara had always been different, but they had never turned against each other. Not until now. Alara believed that Leora should embrace her ghostly heritage. She wanted to take Leora beyond the veil permanently, where she could become something more, a guardian of lost souls, a ruler of the spirits. Sylphine, on the other hand, wanted to bring Leora fully into the fairy realm. She saw Leora as a being of pure magic, destined to sit among the enchanted courts. In me, I just wanted my daughter to have a normal life. But normal was no longer an option. The night the battle began, the house trembled with supernatural energy. Alara summoned spirits from the afterlife, wraiths that howled with sorrow. Sylphine called upon the forces of nature, roots breaking through the wooden floors, vines creeping along the walls. Leora stood between them, torn apart by the war of two mothers. "Come with me," Alara pleaded. "You were never meant to stay in this world." "No," Sylphine cried, "she belongs to the living, to the magic of the earth and sky." Their love for Leora had turned into a war. And I knew that if it continued, it would tear her apart. The fight could not go on. I held Leora in my arms and whispered, "You have to choose, my love. I can't decide for you." She looked at me with those impossible eyes, one silver, one gold. And then, she closed them. The wind stopped. The spirits fell silent. The fairy lights flickered out. When she opened her eyes again, they were neither ghostly nor enchanted. They were human. "I choose neither," she whispered. A pulse of energy surged from her body, knocking both Alara and Sylphine to the ground. The portal to the fairy realm cracked. The veil of the afterlife trembled. And in that moment, Leora did something that had never been done before. She severed herself from both realms. The fairy wings vanished. The ghostly aura faded. She was still powerful, still different, but she was no longer bound to the rules of the afterlife or the enchanted world. She had forged her own path. Sylphine and Alara, exhausted and heartbroken, could do nothing but accept it. And so, our war ended. Leora grew up as neither fairy nor ghost but something new, something entirely her own. The world tried to claim her, but she refused to be claimed. And though her mothers loved her, they never fought again. Because in the end, Leora belonged to no one but herself.